White supremacy, you say? Now that is a joke. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Azriel, the one signing on. Hey, listen, I'm gonna try to do a real quick video for you guys. You know how this works. If you're first time here, make sure you hit that like button, you hit the comment box up with your thoughts, you hit the subscribe button, and hit that share button. If you guys have been with me for a while, y'all know how this works. Hit that like button, that share button, put a comment in the box. Normally I don't do this, but I'm trying my hand at a little bit of crowdfunding, so I'm going to start really small and work my way up. So you guys know I monetize my videos, so I'm going to ask you guys to please click an ad. Helps generate the money. The money goes to buy better equipment. Since my laptop is now back online, this will help me get the software programs I need to get, as well as better cameras and some lighting equipment, so that I can sit down and devote and give you the full-on Azriel the One experience, complete with music, intros, the whole 9 yards. So please, once again, click the ads. Helps generate the money. The money goes and buys the equipment, the programming, and of course I provide the rest. Now, I really wanted to quick jump on this thing about white supremacy. And what I seem to notice, especially here in YouTube, you have a lot of, well, how do I put this delicately? Because I don't want to be offensive for once. You have a conglomerate of absolute jackasses. Yeah, that's the word I want to use. You have a conglomerate of absolute jackasses who use this term whenever we bring up issues that affect the black community en masse. What does that mean? Well, let's start with the birth rate, where 72 to 80% of our children are born to single mothers. Our women account for over half the new HIV cases. More of our sons spend time in jail, in a classroom, and the majority of the Negro populace is living in the lower middle class to absolute poverty, where Section 8 housing reigns supreme, and you see more Negroes standing online for EBT in the ghetto than anybody else. Somehow we can always use the excuse of white supremacy whenever somebody non-black has attacked or defended himself against somebody who is black and has killed him. Now, don't get me wrong. I do acknowledge that racism does exist in America. We've seen over the course of the years so far actual cases of real racism in which a black man has lost his life just because he looks like you and me. But what I come to find out is that whenever there's an issue where black people could take responsibility for the fuck-ups that contribute to a tragedy, what you have is these so-called Negroes who are so-called conscious turn around and say, well, it's white supremacy, as if they want to. It sounds like to me that, like this. Well, here's the problem. Here's some things that I've probably contributed to the problem. I don't want to acknowledge it, so I'm just going to blame Whitey and I'm going to move on. Sounds about right? See, it's strange because when it comes out of the mouths of black men, it's very damning, because the things it actually puts forward are like this. It shows that you have no capability to connect the dots, to troubleshoot, to problem solve. It shows that, well, you feel you have an inferiority complex because someone who is born with very little or no pigmentation, in other words, is white, is better than you, not realizing that we are all born equally, which means we are born of a woman, whether we are born out of a vagina or we come out through cesarean section, and that we will die alone, meaning that we will die, nobody will die with us at the exact same time to accompany us to see if there's an actual afterlife or not. What I'm saying here is that inferiority complex is solely based on the fact that you believe that you are programmed to think that you are less than somebody else. And I hate to use the word program because that's their terminology, their logic, it's not mine. But I think it was very apropos, considering that, well, this concept of white supremacy and pro-blackness in and of itself is programming. Now, what it also shows is that the Negro male has the inability to face adversity. See, the thing is, when a man says he is superior to me, he must prove that he is indeed superior. If he cannot prove he is superior by virtue of physicality, if he cannot prove he is superior by mentality, if he cannot prove he is superior by social ability, if he cannot prove he is superior and many other facets we can measure it against, then how is he superior to me? Because he was born white? What chutzpah. See, what it shows me is that you Negroes, and I'm speaking specifically to the men on this one, are weak, decadent, milk toast, buttered up, soggy, moist. The list goes on and on. But in a nutshell, it just shows that you have lacked the essential components of manhood, and I don't mean by physical standards. And it makes me furthermore feel a bit of pity towards your female counterparts, because if this is the pool they got to draw from, it almost makes sense why they're now giving themselves to Arabs, and they're giving themselves to Jews, and they're giving themselves to Latinos, and they're giving themselves to Asians, and they're giving themselves to whites. See, what you don't understand is that when you say white supremacy, you're telling that when you say white supremacy in face of issues that could be better tackled by accounting for your fuck-ups. When you say that, you pretty much are admitting that from the start, you are beaten. And so, in other words, I won't say in other words. So what I'm saying is, for those people who say, well, black pride, black power, we were kings and gods and we were all this, a dog who has been beaten and has ran from a fight should not bark. Let me say that again. A dog who has been whipped and beaten and has ran from a fight should not bark. And let me add on a few words to that. He should not bark so loudly. One more time. A man who has been beaten and whipped and ran from a fight. A dog that's been beaten, whipped, and ran from the fight should not bark so loudly. In other words, people, you want to make this proposition that you're conscious, you're for the cause, and black people are all this, but your main reasoning to explain away the failures of the black race is white supremacy. Not realizing that every man born into the world and every woman born into the world starts off relatively with equal playing field, with some mitigating circumstances, economically, of course. If you want to go ahead and explain that and use that as your cause to say this man is superior to me, so I must fight against him to make myself equal, well then, brother, you are a lost cause. And so when people point this out to you and they distance themselves from you, now they're coons. What that really shows is that you're a jackass. In and of itself, let's just keep this straight. What you're gonna find in these so-called pro-blacks is just weakness. You're going to find in these pro-blacks the inability to do what they need to do for the perpetual survival of their species. And when I mean species, I don't mean it seem so animalistically. Rather that, let me just scratch that because that is a poor choice of words. For their race. I mean, let's keep this real. There's always going to be a group in the world that finds us as black people to be de-evolved creatures, to be chimpanzees, apes, something less than human. That's just the way that it is. I cannot change how another man perceives me, but what I can change is how I perceive myself. In other words, I'm never going to say white supremacy simply because I do not believe a white man is superior to me physically. I do not believe he is superior to me mentally. He may be superior to me because of his economic circumstances. But money changes hands so many times in the world that one day you can be rich and the next day you're in the poorhouse. but I also don't use it as a way of saying I'm better than him. What happens is this is just a convenience of liberal thought. You know, the Democrats that you love so much, that get you to shame the white person because he's white and because his ancestors enslaved yours, despite the fact that you as black people historically being conservative, you've built your own, you maintained your own, you didn't need anybody for anything. But yet and still we sit and we complain and we bitch and we moan and we try to say white supremacy for every little fuck up, when 80 to 90% of our own problems in the community we could fix our fucking selves if we just grew a pair. Stop blaming white folk for your issues. It's really unbecoming, and for men, it just goes to show you that you're not men at all. Because the real women of the world, be they white, black, or in between, is going to submit to a real man. And oftentimes, they don't submit to your black ass because they automatically know. Yeah, the dick might be okay. It might even be great, borderline on spectacular. But outside of the bedroom, what can you offer me? Because if you look around your own fucking hood, you'll clearly realize black man can't offer me shit. It's fucked up, but that's just the way that it is. And it'll stay that way till your black asses learn how to figure shit out, connect the dots, and get moving in the right direction. And what adds salt to the wound is that you dumb motherfuckers ask for solutions. If you haven't figured out by now, as a man, that if you are faced with adversity, that you should create your own solutions, implement those solutions. If it doesn't work, you try another, and you keep going. We call that the scientific method in most other areas of our lives. We call it the scientific method, you know, where we have a hypothesis, we have a problem, we formulate a hypothesis, we conduct the experiment, we analyze the results, we saw what worked, what didn't, and then if we need to go back and do it again, well, we do it again until we get it right. But that's not what happens in the Negro community now, does it? Amongst the men anyway. See, grown men should not ask other grown men for solutions unless they are completely ignorant of how to do something. You see, there is this saying, you know, teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. Rather, it goes like this: if you teach me how to fish, if you give me a fish, I'll eat for a day, but if you teach me how to fish, I'll eat for a lifetime. Most of you black men know what you got to do. You know what you got to do. So you have no excuse as to why you aren't doing it. So blaming white supremacy just shows the people who think you are already lazy good-for-nothings. It just reinforces the stereotype. And congratulations, because the Negroes that honestly have got it know to get away from your black ass. So now you want to turn around and demonize them and call them coons. What chutzpah. Indeed, what chutzpah. You know, I can't say it no better than this. If you Negroes spent less time blaming somebody else and externalizing your problems, if you spent less time claiming how you are gods and kings, which is ironic considering you claim white supremacy, and you spent more time looking at your own situation, you spent more time fathering your children physically and then being there, raising them, grooming them, making them better than you ever were. If you spent more time protecting your daughters, instilling values in them, if you spent more time buying real assets, because assets are not something you can wear on your ass, if you spent more time investing in yourselves and in each other's children, as well as your own, as opposed to investing in fast cars, easy hoes, and tennis shoes and jewelry, things that don't mean anything 10, 20 years from now, you'd be surprised how far you can go. You'd be surprised. And don't tell me it's not possible because the Asian man is doing it. The Jews have done it. The whites are the ones that were leading the pack for a while. Hell, even the Latinos are catching it. And your black ass is the only one that's sitting around the back of the classroom throwing a paper damn airplane while the lecture of life is being taught. Some food for thought. So please understand, when you come to this channel looking for change of solutions, trying to figure out how you gonna navigate through life the easy way, I got some hard truth for you, brother. Change starts with one.